let's dive into a big week for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Week 1, Atlanta Falcons. Every headline imaginable is going to come. Russell Wilson's start in Pittsburgh. Can he revive his career? Is this the Hall of Fame progress that we've seen? Broderick Jones in the offensive line. So many questions right now. Arthur Smith's return to Atlanta that I think is kind of getting downplayed, and people are somewhat ignoring it. And I get it. It's an offensive coordinator. Nobody really cares about the offensive coordinator, but still pretty big. And he was pretty disrespected in Atlanta by the end of that. Like, so much so that everybody thought he sucked as an NFL coach in general. And I think that he doesn't suck, and he's very good at being an offensive play caller. He just wasn't the greatest head coach. On top of that, his quarterback doesn't even have a job right now, so we should address that. You want to talk about is Arthur Smith the problem? The guy who started at quarterback for him in Atlanta isn't on a team right now, so that makes a lot of sense. Massive week, and we haven't even gotten to practice, and there are so many questions that come with that. Obviously, there's the offensive line competition between Spencer Anderson and Mason McCormick. We're going to dive into that. Possible additions, because I don't believe the Steelers roster is set in place just yet. And maybe they make an addition, whether it's a trade or a signing before Sunday. And then the big one, contract extensions. Because from what I'm hearing, and nothing is set in stone, there's going to be at least one that comes before Sunday. And I guess that's where we'll start. If it was up to me to guess, and just this is just what I'm hearing, and nothing's uncertain. Everything that I'm hearing is there's a possibility. There's a good possibility. So I'm not reporting that this is happening. I'm just guessing that it's going to. Pat Fryermuth's going to get into a deal before Sunday's game, and probably before they take off on Saturday. And in my eyes, that's the perfect situation for the Steelers. Go into the season with your tight end under a new deal, get him all juiced up, ready to go. And then on top of that, when he starts balling out this season, and you're looking at him going, Pat Fryermuth's a monster, this is a top 10 tight end in the NFL, you don't have to worry about next season paying him even more money. So it works out very well for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's the one I expect to happen. I think they might break the rule for Cam. They have the rule, we don't negotiate during the season. I think they might break that for Cam Hayward. I think that he'll go into the year without an extension, and they'll continue to just slowly chip away at it and try to get something done before maybe the midway point of the 2024 season. And I expect it way before that if it does happen, but I think that might be the new deadline just for Cam. And that breaks every rule in the Steelers book. That is law 1 in Steelers franchise organization, whatever you want to say about it. That is where it ends. Week 1, Saturday, you get on the bus. Omar puts all the contract talk in a drawer, and he shuts that drawer until February. And I think they're going to break that for Cam. I expect a contract extension to get done with Cam at some point, but I don't expect it to be before Sunday. Pat, I expect it to get done. I think he's going to ink anywhere from 12 to 14 million bucks. Maybe they get him cheap for 11, but I think 12 to 14 million dollars is the ballpark. I'm kind of shocked it didn't happen yet, but I'm equally excited that it's going to happen before week 1 because, I've been saying this all offseason. You sign that guy now because he's going to be worth a lot more money next season because he's going to have a year. And I have almost no expectation that he struggles in 2024. He seems pretty locked in. And on top of that, go look at a picture of Pat Fryermuth as a rookie and go look at him now. He's starting to look like a tight end. You look at tight ends, they are old men. They are rugged. They have been beat up. Years have been taken off these guys' lives. Pat Fryermuth's getting there. You know what I mean? You look at, he's 45-year-old man right now, chilling at the tight end position. So he's making, I think he's going to make some money. I think he's going to get a deal done. That's my first expectation is Pat gets inked before Sunday.
That one kind of tracks because I've been working for you full time now for a little over a year. One of the first episodes that I was with you, we were talking about a Pat Fryermuth extension before last season and the odds that they would sign him a year early. Now, of course, that was a little bit cart before the horse. Now it seems like, especially with Arthur Smith as your offensive coordinator, it just makes all the sense in the world to go out there and solidify that receiving tight end that's going to be able to be a big part of your offense. The Cam Hayward one surprises me a little bit because obviously you mentioned that's not the way the Steelers have ever operated, is signing guys to extensions, negotiating contracts mid-season. But if it was going to be for anybody, it makes sense that it would be for Cam Hayward, because the fact that they're even in these extension talks at this stage is uncommon for the Steelers. Typically, they'd say, listen, you have a year left on your contract. You're a veteran. We're going to let you play this out, and then we'll decide things. Cam Hayward didn't want that to happen because, as we've mentioned through this entire saga, he doesn't want to be Hines Ward. He doesn't want to be Troy Polamalu. He watched what happened to both of those guys when they waited out their last year of their contract, and the Steelers saying, all right, well, we don't want to renew it. You can either retire as Steeler, which they knew was very important to those players, or you can go play somewhere else, but we're not going to sign you to a new contract. Cam saw that. He's been trying to get a deal done earlier, trying not to repeat history in his sense. So that's already out of the ordinary for the Steelers. So if they're going to break their rule, it makes sense that it would be for Cam, who's already putting them in kind of uneven ground with this kind of contract negotiation.
Yeah. And it just, I think for both sides, like, it's just such a weird situation because it just makes too much sense for both sides. You know, for the Steelers, you get an all-pro level defensive tackle who, yeah, I get it. He's 35 years old. Like, at some point, Father Time is about to step through Cam Hayward's door and say, what's up, pal? You're not playing football anymore. That has not happened yet, and it doesn't look like it's happening right now. So you give him that contract extension for cheap. You work it out so that the back end of it, if he stinks in 2024, you don't have to worry about it. If he stinks in 2025, you don't have to worry about it. At the same time, Cam just wants 3 more years, and if he's looking for a boatload of money, I mean, he's crazy, because that's just not going to happen. So it just makes too much sense for Cam to say, I want to retire a Steeler. Give me 3 years. I've made my money. You know, and I mean, $10-12 million a year is still money. You know, it's not like you're walking around playing for a vet minimum. That's a pretty good contract. And the Steelers on their end to just say, yeah, we'll get an all-pro level defensive tackle for cheap because, for one, we don't have a backup option. There is no backup option right now. The Steelers do not have a succession plan in place. And 2, Larry Ogunjobi and everybody's leaving. Like, you want that guy there. You want, unless they re-sign Larry, which I think is a possibility, but keeping a veteran that has been here forever on that defense, I mean, it's too critical. You know, it doesn't make any sense to not run Cam into the ground if you're the Steelers, especially if you're going to get him for 10, 12, $13 million a season. Like, it's not a bad move. Let's talk about Game Time. I could still taste the popcorn and the soda and smell the beer of my first Pittsburgh Steelers game. And yeah, the Jacksonville Jaguars might have won that day, but I will never forget how loud Heinz Field was and how rocking that stadium was on the North Shore. Game Time has this new feature called Game Time Picks that makes things like getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I have an upcoming concert in Cleveland the day after the Pittsburgh Steelers play against the Browns, and instead of sitting there clicking on every single section, I'm just going to use Game Time Picks. Let's talk about why it's so great. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. On top of that, you get all-in pricing, which means that you get the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. On top of that, you get seat views because nobody wants to buy some nosebleed seats for cheap and take a guess on whether you're staring at a pole or you just got the greatest deal in the entire venue. Plus, the lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time ticket coverage means that your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code ALLSTEELERS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code ALLSTEELERS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, low prices, guaranteed. All right, next biggest topic I think that comes with the Steelers is obviously the offensive line competition. Spencer Anderson, Mason McCormick, they're going to duke it out all week, practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I expected practice today, but to be honest, they never sent out a media schedule, so they might have practice in an hour and a half and nobody knows about it, or they might practice come Wednesday. I see Spencer Anderson getting almost all of the reps as the starter, Mason getting just a little bit. It's kind of like, remember, was it last year? It had to be last year. The first time Kenny went down and Mike Tomlin was like, oh, there's going to be a competition between Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph to see who starts. And then Mitch Trubisky took 95% of the first team reps and Mason like warmed up with the first team like once. That's what I expect to happen between Spencer Anderson and Mason McCormick. Mike Tomlin will come in on Tuesday. First Tomlin Tuesday tomorrow. That's a big deal. And by the end of the press conference, we'll say something along the lines of, yeah, Spencer's going to get the first shot, but this is going to be a competition. We're going to see who the best is. It's going to be Spencer's job. I expect Spencer to be the starter week 1. And I think that's the right move. Don't start 2 rookies and possibly a third come week 2 and Troy Fautanu. Let Spencer Anderson be that guy. He's worked as that guy all offseason. I think it makes the most sense right now. I'm not saying anything about the future, but right now, Spencer Anderson is my pick, and I expect the Steelers to think the same way.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world to go with Anderson. I like McCormick, and I think the future's bright for him, but I just think that it's a little bit too much too soon to throw in, like you mentioned, potentially 3 rookies in week 1 or 3 rookies in week 2. I understand Anderson's only in year 2, and I understand he was a 7th-round pick. But again, we mentioned it last week. This is a guy that has gone through an NFL season, has gone through an NFL game week before, which you can't deny that plays an impact and plays a factor as well. And this is also a guy that the Steelers have liked a lot since he came into the organization. There was no question he was making the 53-man roster last year as a 7th rounder. And this year he was given a bigger role. And I think this is the time to let him prove that all of that work is paying off and that you do have a viable option behind Siamalu going forward, as well as being able to grow and groom Mason McCormick to potentially be the future starter.
Yeah, and that's the thing is next year, if Isaac returns but James Daniels doesn't, maybe you start Mason McCormick in James Daniels' spot. But the year after that, you're going to need another guard. And if Spencer's good, you are now looking at Broderick Jones, Spencer Anderson, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, and Troy Fautanu as your offense. Like, that's how you build an offensive line. And everybody's going to say, well, Spencer was a 7th-round pick. Ramon Foster was here forever, and that dude was undrafted. So Alejandro Villanueva was the same way. Like, they know how to do this. If you have somebody on the offensive line, you let them rock. You don't care where they got drafted. If they're good, you keep them around. And Spencer Anderson would be as cheap as they come. So I think that's the right move for the Steelers for right now, and to kind of see what you have in the future. I wouldn't be worried about Mason McCormick, and this has nothing to do with Mason McCormick's development. If anything, it protects him moving forward. Next thing is obviously the signings, the additions, what's going on at corner, what's going on at wide receiver. It's a big week for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you take a weekend off, you kind of settle, and everybody's like, all right, this is what's happened. I don't think the Steelers are doing that. I think they're looking at this and saying, we're trying to find some corner help. We're trying to find some wide receiver help. I don't think they're going to get lucky with the wide receiver. I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe after week 1, week 2, a guy like Treylon Burks becomes available, and you could look at a name like that. But I think cornerback is the way to go right now. I think you could go out and find Patrick Peterson would be the guy, but I don't know if you've been paying attention to his Instagram stories. He's in like Cancun or something every weekend, hosting events, hanging out at Vegas. And do it up, my dude. Do it. Have a blast. But if you had asked me, Patrick Peterson is in pretty good retirement mode right now, and I would have a hard time believing he comes back to play in 2024. But Akello's out there. Obviously Xavier Howard's out there, but there's questions there. There's names out there. There are names out there that you could still go and sign. And I think the Steelers are bare minimum going to have some conversations this week to see what's good. Next week is when I believe they'll start working on the wide receiver, because they'll want to see what they have right now in this group, especially if Roman Wilson somehow gets to play in week 1. I think they give it a moment, see what they have, and then address it. Corner, I don't think they're going to wait. I think they're going to make a move before Sunday, just as like a last option reserve guy, not to surpass Corey Trice, maybe play a little bit in the slot, but I still think Corey could play in the slot too. But I do expect a cornerback to be added before game time.
Yeah, you need a little bit more support in that room. And that's not to say that Beanie shouldn't be the starter and Beanie Bishop in the slot, but you do need some support there in case, he's an undrafted rookie, in case the lights get a little bit too bright and you need to not give him 100% of the snaps right away. Now, that's not to say that he wouldn't need it. Potentially, he goes out there and he's great. I'm not ruling that out because I think that he has that capability. But I mean, it's not just him. It's also that third cornerback. I mean, Corey Trice has never stepped on the field in an NFL regular season game. You need a little bit more support in those rooms. And I understand DeMonte KZ might be able to drop down. But again, it's the getting back into the first conversation we had. How many times do you really want to start switching people from their natural positions? And how much better off are you if you do that versus going out and getting somebody else who that is their natural position? Unfortunately, Dory Jackson came off the board. He was my option for the Steelers there, but there's still, like you mentioned, some other options out there for the Steelers to kind of supplant really the bottom of that room and to help out when it comes to reserves and backups and load management if need be on Sunday.
Yeah, it was crazy how quick Adoree went off the board after we talked about him on Friday. I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me, man. There it is. Classic fashion, obviously. That's how we do things here. I agree with you. Like, it's one thing, and you're spot on. It's one thing to put somebody out there and say, hey, this is week 1. This is your first ever NFL game. Awesome. It's another thing to say, this is week 1. This is your first ever NFL game. And we're going to make you play slot corner, which you've never played before in your entire career. So have a great time doing that one. I think they're going to try to get somebody to fill that slot role, keep Beanie off the field and kind of keep trucking forward. But that's my expectations. As for wide receiver, I think we get a whole week before any decisions moving forward are made there. What's up, guys? It's football season, and we've teamed up with DraftKings. Right now, new customers who bet $5 will receive $250 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, you'll receive 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. It's hard to think of a better way to celebrate fall weather, your favorite jersey, and Sunday touchdowns than with the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Download the DraftKings app and use our promo code ALLSteelers. That's $250 in bonus bets instantly and 1 month of NFL Plus Premium after betting just $5. Stay in the action and use your $250 in bonus bets to bet anytime touchdowns on DraftKings. DraftKings is the place to bet touchdowns. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You could still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code ALLSteelers and bet just $5 on any wager and get $250 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code ALLSteelers only at DraftKings Sportsbook.